Welcome to Bible study. This is the Bible study which we are preparing for December 8 in 2024, the second Sunday of Advent. You see our beautiful Advent paraments behind me here. It is the season of preparation for our Lord's birth. Pray that you can be a part of that at St. Michael's and that you are blessed in this time. We continue our study of the first chapters of the Deuteronomic history book of 1 Samuel. And so if you have your Bible available to you, I encourage you to turn to that. And we are going to kind of come back and back up just a little bit here into chapter 14 here and re-examine a little bit of what's going on there. We started that last week, didn't get there in our Sunday morning discussion. We're going to pick that up today, but I want to spend just a few more minutes on what's happening here. In chapter 14, Saul has won this amazing victory over the Philistines. Now, this is despite the fact that he disobeyed God and offered the sacrifice that he was not supposed to do. But the text attributes this not so much to Saul as it does to Jonathan, his son, who in the story comes off as the righteous and good son of a tragic man who is caught up in the tragic failures of Saul. But Jonathan is a very sympathetic character. He comes and stands before the Philistines, and the Philistines call him up, and he had said to his armor bearer, if they call us up, we're going to go. And they did. And they overcame the Philistines. And this began this battle. God caused an earthquake. He caused a confusion among the Philistines. They began to fight one another, and Saul and his men rushed to take advantage of this opportunity that was before them, and the Philistines fled. The men of Israel had been hard-pressed that day, and so Saul laid an oath on them. He wanted to pursue the Philistines and work this final battle. He wanted to destroy the Philistines. A crippling blow. And so Saul said, we're not going to even stop and eat lunch. We're not going to stop and eat dinner. We're going to keep going until tonight, and nobody is allowed to eat anything because I don't want anybody stopping. So no food till evening. And he cast it as a religious vow. Cursed be the man who eats food until it is evening, and I am avenged upon my enemies. Well, this is a rather foolish thing to do to an army because the old adage that an army operates on its stomach is as true in the ancient world as it is today. But remember, Jonathan had precipitated this whole battle by stepping out in front of everyone else and initiating an engagement with the Philistine enemies. He's not there at the back when Saul makes this command that no one is to eat anything today. And so Jonathan, unaware of the vow that Saul had placed upon everybody, goes into the forest. And behold, there was honey dripping, but no one put his hand to his mouth, for the people feared this oath that Saul had made. But Jonathan had not heard his father charge the people with the oath, and so he put the tip of his staff that was in his hand and dipped it into the honeycomb and put his hand to his mouth, and his eyes became bright. He was restored by eating this. And one of the people said, Jonathan, your father strictly charged the people with an oath, saying, cursed be the man who eats food this day. Now the people were faint, and Jonathan said, my father has troubled the land. See how my eyes have become bright because I tasted a little of this honey. How much better if the people had eaten freely today of the spoil of their enemies that they found, for now the defeat among the Philistines has not been great. And so Jonathan recognizes the oath that Saul has enjoined upon everybody as a foolish thing to do. But it's still an oath. It says they struck down the Philistines from Michmash to Aijalon, and the people were very faint. They pounced upon the spoil. They took sheep and oxen and calves and slaughtered them. and then the people ate them with their blood. This is a firm dictum from the book of Deuteronomy in chapter 17. You shall not eat an animal with its blood. But they were so hungry because Saul had not allowed them to eat that they could not wait. They told Saul, behold, the people are sinning against the Lord by eating with the blood. And he said, you've dealt treacherously. Roll a great stone to me here. And Saul said, disperse yourselves among the people and say to them, let every man bring the ox or his sheep and slaughter them here and eat. Do not sin against the Lord by eating the blood. So what he did was he set up a place where they could slaughter the animal and the blood could drain out, and then they could eat this. So Saul recognizes this. He sees the sin for what it is, but they're doing it because he put them into that situation. And then Saul said, let's go down to the Philistines by night and plunder them until morning. And they said, well, do whatever seems good. But the priest said, maybe we ought to ask God. And Saul inquired of God, shall I go down to the Philistines? And God didn't answer. And Saul said, come here, all you leaders of the people, and know and see how this sin has arisen today. There's something going on. And he says, we got to figure out what it is. And so they start to do this lot drawing process, similar to the one where they found Saul to be the next king. And it comes down that it is not the people, it's Saul. And he puts Saul and his family on one side, and then they divide between the people of Saul, and it turns out to be Jonathan. And Saul said to Jonathan, tell me what you have done. And Jonathan said, I tasted a little honey with the tip of the staff that was in my hand. And Jonathan said, here I am. If this is what it takes, if I have to die, I die. And Saul said, God, so do to me and more also, if you surely shall die, Jonathan. And the people said to Saul, no, shall Jonathan die? He has worked this great salvation in Israel. Far from it. As the Lord lives, not one hair of his head shall fall to the ground. And so the people ransomed Jonathan that day, and he did not die. But that was the end of the pursuit of the Philistines. Saul went up from pursuing the Philistines, and the Philistines went to their own place. He wasn't able to capitalize on the victory. This story has some very intentional drawback for us to the Torah, as well as to earlier pieces in the Deuteronomic history. Of course, we've already mentioned the one about the eating with blood, but there's also this sense of this utter destruction, and that's going to come up also in the next chapter. That God calls upon the people of Israel sometimes to utterly destroy their enemies. And it is that failure to utterly destroy them in the days of Joshua and elsewhere that causes great grief for the people of Israel. And we see Saul continuing that same problem. They don't actually finally and fully deal with the problem. But there is another story which we probably need to pay attention to here. And that is a story from the days of the judges. If you have your text here, you may want to turn with me to that chapter, in chapter 11 of Judges. It's the story of a great judge named Jephthah. He passed through Gilead and Manasseh. He passed to Mizpah and Gilead, and from Mizpah of Gilead he passed on to the Ammonites, and he made a vow to the Lord. He said, if you will give the Ammonites into my hand, then whatever comes out from the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the Ammonites shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering. Well, he goes on and fights the Ammonites, and he is given this victory. But when he comes to his home, behold, it was his daughter that came out to meet him with tambourines and dances, his only child. And as soon as he saw her, he tore his clothes and said, "Alas, my daughter, you have brought me low. I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot take back my vow." And so despite the injunction of the Torah that says, "Do not sacrifice your own children," Jephthah did it. And so we see here almost cast that the religion, the faith, the trust in God has diminished. Abraham famously was willing to sacrifice his son. Jephthah did sacrifice his daughter. Saul does not. Now, we would probably say about this that good for Saul. And you have to remember the Bible is a record not of what was supposed to happen, but a record of what did. And the Deuteronomic history is clear in this regard that something has departed from Israel. Something is not as it should be. When Saul had taken the kingship over Israel, he fought against all his enemies on every side. Against Moab, against the Ammonites, against Edom, against the kings of Zobah, against the Philistines. Wherever he turned, he routed them. And he did valiantly, and he struck the Amalekites, and he delivered Israel out of the hands of those who plundered them. The people had asked for a king, and they had good reason to. Saul would lead them to military victory, but he would not lead them to righteousness. The sons of Saul were Jonathan, Ishvi, Malchishua, and the names of his two daughters were these. The name of the first was Merab, and the name of the younger was Michal. The name of Saul's wife was Ahinoam, the daughter of Ahimaaz. And the name of the commander of his army was Abner, son of Ner, who was Saul's uncle. Kish was the father of Saul, and Ner, the father of Abner, was the son of Abiel. There was hard fighting against the Philistines all the days of Saul. And when Saul saw any strong man or any valiant man, he attached himself to him. That's going to come up in just a little bit, because soon he's going to see a strong and a valiant young man by the name of David. And he will attach himself to him. And therein will lie the great conflict that will tear asunder the house of Saul. We look forward to talking with you on Sunday about this. God bless your Advent. We'll see you then.